Okay, we're live. Hi everyone, I am Giuseppe Fratoni and welcome to another episode of the GPF Chat, my expert interview series. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into a topic that's near and dear to my heart, Twitter. And to talk about Twitter, I'm delighted to be joined by the Twitter expert, Mr. Mark Schaefer. Mark, welcome to the show. I'm happy to have you.
Well, thanks very much for having me.
Mark Schaefer is a globally recognized blogger, speaker, educator, business consultant, and author. He teaches graduate marketing classes at Rutgers University and has written 4 best-selling books, including The Tao of Twitter, the best-selling book on Twitter in the world, and Return on Influence, which was named one of the top business titles of the year by the American Library Association. Mark has worked in global sales, PR, and marketing positions for nearly 30 years, and now provides consulting services as Executive Director of Schaefer Marketing Solutions. He specializes in marketing strategy and a social media workshop, and his clients include both startups and global brands. Mark is also the co-host of the Marketing Companion, one of the top-rated marketing podcasts on iTunes. So Mark, let's start with your background. You have a traditional marketing and corporate background, and now you are one of the most influential bloggers and experts in the social media space. How did you get there?
Well, the last job I had at a big company, I was the global director of e-business, and this would have been around 2006, 2007, when really social media was just starting to spring up. I started my own company in 2008 and realized that if I was going to consult and teach, that I really needed to immerse myself in this stuff. So I started to blog, and I think Twitter was really the first thing that I tried, and I hated it. I thought it was the dumbest thing I'd ever seen, and it took me months to figure it out. And once I figured it out, I realized how very powerful it could be, and that's when I started to write the book, because I was starting to see how the dots were connected for businesses with Twitter, and I didn't want other businesses to suffer as I had, so I decided to write the book. And it first came out in 2011, then it was relaunched by McGraw-Hill in 2012, and a brand new edition is now out, just came out a few weeks ago.
Yeah, of course, I've read both.
Thank you.
Yeah, I actually got the new edition delivered on my Kindle while I was on holiday last August, and it was great read for the summer.
Thank you.
Mark, when it comes to social media marketing, the first platform that almost every business owner thinks of is Facebook, and Twitter isn't perceived as a viable option. Now, the question is why? What is it that's preventing businesses from embracing Twitter?
I think the biggest obstacle, and I think Twitter even articulates this as a company, is that it's not intuitive. If you think about Facebook, it's pretty easy to know the basics of Facebook. Certainly YouTube, you watch videos. It's not that much different than television. LinkedIn is pretty straightforward. But Twitter has kind of this language of its own. And it doesn't, at least not yet, it doesn't filter the news feed like Facebook does. So it can seem very strange and overwhelming. And I think businesses really don't understand how powerful it can really be. They don't understand that it's one of the most powerful marketing research tools ever created. And I don't think it's too bold to say that it's changed my life. It's changed my business. I think there are huge opportunities for business but they just don't understand, and it's more difficult to understand than the other platforms.
Okay, and what would you say to a business to convince it to embrace Twitter?
I think the first thing is just kind of listen for a while. Just start looking at what's going on out there. And if you're a business and you've never tried Twitter at all and really don't understand it, I mean, most people, when they read my book, they say after the first 25 pages, they just thought, "Oh wow, I never thought of Twitter that way before. That's really changed my idea of what it's about." And certainly, it can be used for many, many reasons. It can be used for research, as I said. It can be used for customer service. It can be used to track competitors. It can be used to generate leads and build relationships. The first step would probably be just using search to see what conversations on out there. And one of the examples I use in my book, which I think everybody can relate to, is going to I have a chapter in the book all about how to use search. And so I said, let's just say you're a small business. You're a small pizza shop, is the example I used in my book. You can see who is talking about food and pizza within a certain distance from your shop. And I did this little experiment and found that there was a reference to pizza, even in my small town, about every 15 minutes. And people were talking about competitors of this pizza shop. They were talking about different types of pizza. They were saying, "Gosh, I'm broke. I wish I had money for pizza." Or the weather is bad. The delivery trucks are having a trouble getting through. So there's all types of things you can observe and learn, even the very smallest businesses. I once did consulting for a company that did heating and air conditioning, and all they did was listen to people complain about their air conditioning being broken. And then they were able to respond and say, "Hey, can we help you? We can have someone there at your house in 30 minutes." And they completely transformed their business. So that's just one example of how businesses can use Twitter to really grow their business.
Okay, good. And in fact, the Twitter search is one of the most powerful features, I think, inside the platform.
Yes,
Mark,
it is, yeah.
you have developed this blueprint for people and businesses that want to get started with Twitter and be successful, that you call the Tao of Twitter, whose components are targeted connections, meaningful content, and authentic helpfulness. Can you explain how this works?
Well, what I discovered after struggling for months is that there really was a path. The word Tao, or Dao is the Chinese pronunciation, is a word that means path. And what I found is that behind every social media case study and success story, there was this common structure. So first of all, you needed to have some sort of content. And on Twitter, it might be a tweet or a link to something more powerful. Content is the catalyst that makes everything happen on the web. Now, after content, and most businesses are starting to understand that. They say, well, we need to have a blog now. We've got a Facebook page. But they miss the second part, which is the targeted audience. Now, here's the amazing thing about Twitter. It is the best way to find a targeted, relevant, engaged audience than any other social media platform, including Facebook, including YouTube, including blogging. On Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube, to build an audience, they really have to follow you or subscribe to you. You don't have to do that on Twitter. There are lots of tools to find people who are interested in your topic and your business, in your area, in your geographic area. You can follow them. You can find ways to try to connect with them, and they don't have to follow you back. It's a very unique value proposition for Twitter. And as I said, I've got a list in the book, I believe it's chapter 5, with 25 different ways to find those people, to find people who have some propensity to be interested in you and be interested in your business. Then the third item, as you mentioned, is authentic helpfulness. People are tired of being sold to and advertised to. And if you try to sell to people on the web, they're going to run away. They go there to have fun. They go there to see pictures of cats and videos, and they go there to relax. But they will be attracted to you and your business if you help them. If you help them be more successful, to have more fun, to be entertained, to learn something, to save money, to make money. So if you have to change this mindset that to succeed on Twitter and the social web in general, we can't just keep selling, selling, selling. It's a different mindset. It's a different platform that we have to treat in a unique way. So we have to move from sell, sell, sell to help, help, help. That's hard for businesses to do, especially if they're run on quarterly sales goals. You know, it's hard to build relationships with quarterly goals in mind, and that's a challenge for big businesses and small businesses.
Yeah, I agree, totally agree. I think that people face two huge issues when they try to get started with Twitter. The first is the 140 character limit, and the second is the noise, the fact that tweets come at a furious pace.
Yeah.
How can new users overcome these issues?
Well, I have almost 100,000 people following me on Twitter, and believe it or not, it's still really fun for me. It's still really easy to use. And the trick is that once you get above around 200 followers or so, it starts to get really noisy. So you have to use Twitter lists. It's very, very easy to use. And I've got a whole chapter in the book about how to use Twitter lists. But for me, for example, I have a list of people who are active on my blog. So for example, you're on this list. I have a list of people who live in my community. I have a list of people who are my customers. And so you can just look at this list and kind of scroll down for the day and see what people are saying and what's on their mind. So this is particularly important. Let's say a few months ago we had a weather emergency here in my community. We had tornadoes hitting all around my city, and I could just look at the list on Twitter for people in my community. I could see pictures of damage. I could see exactly where the tornadoes were hitting. I could see pictures of what was going on. I could learn who needed help, where people could go for help. And so that's an example of how news was breaking, and I didn't have to look through this whole wall of noise to find out what was going on. I could just look at this one list. Twitter is my university. Twitter is where I learn. I learn about new platforms and new trends and new marketing ideas. And I get this because I have a list of my teachers. These are the speakers and the authors and the university professors who I really love and admire. And they don't even have to follow me back. I can follow them, put them on a list, and I can see all their best ideas. Now, isn't this an interesting idea that anybody has access to this? Why don't more companies use this as an education tool? Don't you think you could create competitive advantage in companies if you taught your employees how to do research on Twitter, who to follow in your industry to get the best ideas on how to do your job better, to follow your customers to see what they're saying, to follow your competitors? And yet most businesses don't use Twitter that way, and it's kind of mind-blowing to think of the lost opportunities.
Well, I think that those businesses and companies don't use Twitter that way because they haven't read your book yet.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I knew you were so wise. So see, now I'm moving you over to teacher on one of my lists.
Thank you very much, Mike. Um, Listen, is there any particular tool or app that you use to look at your feed and or to schedule your tweets if you schedule them?
Well, those are good questions. There are several good tools out there. Um, uh, TweetDeck is very popular. I use Hootsuite, and whether you choose TweetDeck or Hootsuite or something similar, they have a free version, they have a mobile version, and it's important to use a mobile version because that way you can just take advantage of time throughout the day when you're waiting in line or something, and you can kind of look at your Twitter stream and see what's going on. I use the Hootsuite professional version, which I think is like $9 a month. That would be, maybe, 12 euros maybe. It's not very expensive at all, and you can import your lists, and so you can see a nice column of all your Twitter feeds. You can schedule your tweets. There are lots of powerful ways to use it. What tool do you use?
Well, I use Hootsuite and also TweetDeck every now and then,
Hmm.
and I also Buffer to buffer my
Sure.
tweets. Just
Yeah,
the tools
and
that I use.
that's an important point, and that's why you might use Buffer or schedule tweets because you don't want to overwhelm people. So I see things during the day that I get excited about. It might be a story or a photo or a video, and I want to tweet it out. And if I don't want to do it, back to back to back, people will just be overwhelmed. So it's nice to schedule that out so that you send out information, maybe every hour or so. And I'm not the best at that. I tend to just tweet something when I'm in the moment and when I'm in the mood. But people should try to schedule it out a little bit.
Yeah, and I have also inside Buffer, I have imported settings from another app that I can't remember its name now. It figures out the best tweeting time for me
Yeah,
based on my audience, and I've imported those times inside Buffer so my tweets get the maximum exposure, basically.
that's great. Yeah, Hootsuite has something like that too. I haven't used it. Um, I just kind of I schedule it on my own time. But they do have an automated function in Hootsuite too.
Yeah, yeah. And do you think that there is there the perfect number of followers? I mean, how many followers are enough?
Well, that's a really good question. It's a question that a lot of businesses have. And the example I use is, well, let's go back to the local pizza shop again. If you connect with 500 or maybe 1,000 people who live in your community, who are potential customers for you, that's probably enough. You've probably done a really good job. If someone that has an automotive dealership business in Switzerland starts to follow you, that probably doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You don't need to build the audience any bigger than that. Now, I mentioned earlier that I have about 100,000 followers, and people might think, oh, that seems, why would you need so many followers? Well, I'm a blogger, and I'm a writer, and I'm a speaker, and every time I speak at a conference somewhere in the world, people start following me from wherever I am. And I sell marketing services, so my customer base is literally the world. I can sell my consulting services to any company in the world, really. Anybody can enjoy my blog. They can enjoy my books. So there's really no upper limit to how many followers I would want. And I'm very fortunate that I'm at a point, once you get to a certain point, you don't really need to be so active finding people to follow. As I said, you know, I have a whole chapter in my book to teach people how to do that. And when you're just starting out, it's important to be active and to build your audience. Otherwise, you're going to be bored. You're not going to see any business benefits. So you just can't wait for it to happen. You need to be active, and you need to build it. I don't need to do that anymore because, like I said, I have this kind of presence where I blog every day, and people read my books and they start following me. So I'm getting hundreds of new followers every week just organically. So the answer to, you know, how many followers do you really need, there's no set answer. It just depends on your goals as a business.
Yeah, of course. And another advanced feature that you talk about in your book is hashtags. What's the right way for a business to use hashtags?
Well, the chapter in my book, I try to think of every single way that businesses could use hashtags. I think I covered them all, and probably the most common use of hashtags is to organize information. So let's say you're at a conference. I was just at Content Marketing World, so they had a hashtag CM World. So everybody at this event, when they were tweeting about the sessions that they were enjoying, they would end the tweet with hashtag CM World. So if you weren't attending, you could just do a search on Twitter for hashtag CM World, and you could see all the information coming from that event. It's pretty neat. It's a very powerful way to organize information. Whether it could be an advertising campaign, excuse me. It could be just something going on with your company. If you're just trying to organize the conversation and organize the content so everyone can see it in one place at one time, that's one of the main uses for hashtags.
Okay, cool. Let's talk for a minute about the Twitter advertising platform. You said that small businesses should start to look at Twitter ads now. Why are they so powerful?
Well, there are a couple unique things about Twitter ads that you can't find on other platforms. Number one, Twitter does a very, very good job getting you very granular demographics. And you can also find people based on the conversations they're having right now. So, for example, let's go back to the pizza shop owner. He could automate something with his promoted tweets to say, if someone is in this area around my business and they say something about being hungry or looking for a restaurant or looking for pizza, send them that tweet. So it's a very good way to find people when they need you. And there are lots of ways to organize that. The second thing is that you only pay for the ad if someone engages with it. So if someone sees your tweet but they don't click on it or they don't favor it or retweet it, you don't pay. The other thing that's unique about Twitter is that if you retweet it and then other people click on it, you don't pay for that. You only pay for the audience that Twitter sends to you. So there's this amplification effect that Twitter kind of gives you for free. And relatively speaking, excuse me, Twitter is a very inexpensive platform because they're introducing new opportunities and there's a big inventory of advertising space. So, I mean, that would probably get more expensive over time, but right now is a good time to try advertising on Twitter.
Awesome. There will be tons of other things to talk about, of course, but our time is running out. So the last question is, where can people discover more about you and your work?
Well, I'd love to connect with everybody hearing this today. especially all my new friends in Italy, because I want to get to Italy. I've never given a speech in Italy, so
We're waiting for you.
you need to start working on that.
Okay. Okay.
But everybody, you can find more about me at businessesgrow.com is my website, and that is you can find my blog, my podcast, lots of information that's available for free to help you in your business.
Okay, Mark, thank you so much for sharing your ideas and expertise with us today. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Okay, great. Thanks everyone for watching, and for today we are signing off.